Iran offered peace. The United States called it unacceptable. So who actually wants this war to end? On May 11, 2026, Iran sent a peace proposal to the United States through mediator Pakistan. Within hours, President Trump rejected it on Truth Social, calling it totally unacceptable. But here's what no one is telling you. Iran's proposal wasn't extreme. In fact, it looked a lot like previous deals the world had already signed and agreed to.
Here's where we are. On February 28, 2026, the U.S. and Israel launched a coordinated military campaign against Iran. After weeks of intense fighting, a temporary ceasefire was agreed on April 8th. But notice the word temporary. We are now 73 days into this conflict, and neither side has agreed on what peace actually looks like. The Strait of Hormuz, this narrow waterway sitting between Iran and Oman, is the single most important energy corridor on the planet. Right now, it is effectively closed. Iran has blockaded it in response to a U.S. naval blockade of its own ports. 2 blockades, 0 trade, and a global economy feeling every barrel of it. So what did Iran actually propose?
Through Pakistan acting as a diplomatic go-between, Tehran sent a counteroffer with 3 core demands. First, end the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon, where Israel has continued heavy military operations. Second, guarantee maritime security in the Gulf, meaning lift the U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports. Third, release frozen Iranian assets currently held in overseas banks under U.S. pressure. On the nuclear question, which is really the heart of this entire standoff, Iran said it would dilute some of its highly enriched uranium and transfer the rest to a neutral third country. It also offered to suspend uranium enrichment, but for a shorter period than the 20-year moratorium the U.S. had demanded. Iran was firm on one point: it would not dismantle its nuclear facilities. The U.S. wanted the exact opposite sequencing. Before any ceasefire becomes permanent, Washington demands that the Strait of Hormuz be reopened, all 440 kilograms of Iranian-enriched uranium be handed over, and Iranian enrichment be reduced to 0% permanently. Trump has also made clear he wants Iran to end its support for Hezbollah and Hamas across the region. The core deadlock? Iran says end the war first, nuclear negotiations second. The U.S. says nuclear first, peace second. Neither side will blink.
Here's what the headlines are missing. This is not simply about uranium. Iran's nuclear program is leverage. It is the one card that makes Washington sit down and negotiate at all. The moment Iran surrenders it with no permanent peace deal in hand, it loses its most powerful bargaining chip forever. A political scientist from the University of York made this point clearly. Trump has painted himself into a corner. He cannot concede further to Iran without undermining his image of American strength and dominance. But he also cannot pressure Iran into full capitulation. Without movement on either side, there is no clear path forward. Meanwhile, the economic pressure is immense for both parties. Global oil markets remain distorted. Iran's economy, already weakened by decades of sanctions, now faces a naval blockade, cutting off its primary export income. But the U.S. is not immune. Europe, Asia, and American energy markets are all absorbing the shock of a closed Hormuz. Analysts at the International Crisis Group have warned bluntly, no amount of economic coercion or military force will compel Iran to accept maximalist U.S. demands. That leaves Trump, in their words, with 2 bad options: escalate a war he cannot win, or accept a compromise he cannot sell politically. In Washington, the political calculus is tightening. Trump declared Operation Epic Fury concluded, signaling no appetite for a major new offensive. But with no deal in sight, the remaining tools are limited: tighter sanctions, targeted naval actions around Hormuz, and diplomatic pressure on European and Asian partners to help escort commercial vessels through the Strait. For Europe, the UK, and Canada, the immediate pain is energy security. Disrupted Gulf supply chains are forcing governments to accelerate energy diversification strategies they had been slow to act on. Germany and the broader EU are watching their industrial base strain under volatile energy prices with no clear resolution date on the horizon. For Russia and China, this standoff is, paradoxically, useful. Every week, the United States is absorbed in a military and diplomatic confrontation with Iran is a week of reduced American strategic attention elsewhere. Both Moscow and Beijing have publicly signaled support for a diplomatic resolution, but neither is applying meaningful pressure on Tehran to soften its position.
Here's why this matters to you, wherever you are watching from. The Strait of Hormuz is not a regional problem. It is the world's oil pressure valve. As long as it remains closed, global energy prices stay unpredictable. As long as neither side can bridge the gap between nuclear first and peace first, the standoff continues. Iran's foreign ministry has said the choice now lies with Washington. Washington says Tehran is playing games. What we are really watching is two governments, both under enormous pressure, both with red lines they will not cross, trying to find a way out of a crisis that neither can fully afford to win or to lose. That is the kind of strategic deadlock that shapes the next chapter of global geopolitics. And it is happening right now, 73 days in, with no end in sight. If peace is on the table, why can't anyone pick it up? If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe for more deep dives into power, geopolitics, and the hidden stories behind global politics.